Let's go wait for notification. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of NASCAR by the Numbers. We're going to give you a preview on the Talladega race. Got the usual panel on myself and NASCAR opinion.
Oh, yeah. Just a typical Sunday. The Panthers are about to win early in the morning. And hopefully we get this freaking race in today.
All right, so we got a pretty decent episode coming for you guys today. But before we get to it, we're going to go down to the truck series a bit. We're going to talk about the Johnny Sauter incident on the last lap.
Okay, so if you weren't paying attention, which I only got to see really the last 4 or 5 laps of the race. Had a good friend from work. We had a little surprise birthday party for his birthdays this week. We were watching the South Carolina-Georgia game. He's a diehard Gamecock fan. They're trying to make me one. I'm trying my best. Sometimes it's hard. But yesterday was pretty cool. But the game was over, and I'm like, you know what? If I can get reception on Hulu, I'm just going to watch the last few laps. Got to watch it. I saw the Gus Dean crash and then the final restart. And I was if you didn't see it, I was tied because I picked Johnny Sauter to win this race. Just a shot in the park, going for, I think, my 10th win of the season, at least pick NASCAR. And he goes – I thought it was done. I thought at this point Johnny Sauter's good enough. He's going to be able to block. He's going to hold his line. He's not going to really have any kind of challenge. And then you remember that whole trial was long. They continue to go on, and the rest kind of goes as history. Sauter goes to start blocking Riley Herbst. He takes him below the yellow line. Herbst obviously went below the yellow line. Sauter took him, blocked him down there. And then Spencer Boyd's just sitting back here. He ends up crossing the line second. And I saw the finish, and I was waiting. I was waiting for NASCAR to just be typical NASCAR and give it to Johnny Sauter. And then, boom, they made the right call for once, and Spencer Boyd gets his first ever NASCAR sanctioned win.
That was fucking crazy. Like, I was at work when it happened. So, I just looked at it. Like, I just saw the result. I looked on my phone, and then I saw, okay, Johnny Sauter won, Spencer Boyd in second. And then I just see, in the chats, Larry's going NASCAR made a dumb, NASCAR, they're going to do so. They stole that win from Riley Herbst. I was like, what are the chances NASCAR penalizes Johnny Sauter? And they actually do it.
Yeah. And there were some people that were on the both sides of the conversation. But at the end of the day, NASCAR finally made the call per the rule book. They say if you block if you go below the yellow line, you will be black flagged. If you force someone below the yellow line, you will be black flagged. That's what happened in both circumstances. Now, here's the thing. Riley Herbst would have been the winner, obviously, if he would have crossed the line second, because to me, he was forced below the yellow line. Now, we've seen it history. NASCAR still kind of screws the guy who was forced below the yellow line. Look at Regan Smith. I'm still going to preach Regan Smith has 2 Cup wins. In my opinion, let's say Herbst would have crossed the line second after Sauter. Herbst should have been declared the winner. But he didn't. Spencer Boyd beat him to the line. And at the end of the day, Spencer Boyd, out of nowhere for Young's Motorsports, gets his first ever win. So pretty cool for small teams, pretty cool for Spencer Boyd. I was just really hoping that he avoided Natalie Decker post-race. I hate for his hat to get dirty. But really, really cool to see that happen.
Yeah, it's actually the first one also for Young Motorsports, which is interesting. Didn't Austin Hill race for that team last year?
I believe so. I think that's where he was at before, obviously, the deal at Tory came together. And then for Young's Motorsports, it's been a roller coaster ride. I think Tyler Young had some issues earlier this year where he was going to be suspended indefinitely. Then he was cleared and all that kind of stuff happened. So yeah. It's a pretty good story for that team who's had a relatively rough season.
Yeah.
But right call by NASCAR. Hopefully, if it happens again, we'll finally have a baseline to stay consistent. But we'll see.
Yeah. The rule, I think, even says, you may be penalized. So, if that's what it says in the rule book, that's really dumb. But I agree. Now made the right decision.
At this point, you got to look at it at the end of the day. To me, if you're forced below the yellow line and there's nothing you could do and you can still come back and cross the line second, or you were the first legal guy, then you should win it. Spencer Boyd was there. I don't know if Riley Herbst got penalized. I don't know if he's marked as the second place finisher or not. I'm actually going to look at it.
Second.
Okay, so maybe Riley was third because I remember Gilliland did cross second. I'm interested to see. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. I'm interested to see where Herbst was put because, in my opinion, he should be black flagged. He should be wherever he finished. I'm gonna look that up real quick because I'm interested on that because I don't believe he should have been black flagged because he was forced. I should have it right here.
Riley Herbst finished third.
So good. So see, I like in that instance that he wasn't penalized. The only person that should have been penalized in that whole deal is Johnny Sauter, and he rightfully was.
It's been a bad season for Johnny Sauter. Does he even have like double-digit top tens on the season? Now I think about it.
Let me see, because I think he was my championship pick.
Yeah, he was your championship pick, and then he got knocked out of round 1.
Well, it doesn't help when you have motors that are given to you and they explode. But, I mean, that's part of racing. They try to do the appeal to get back in the playoffs. I mean, you can't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Johnny Sauter only has 8 top 10s this year.
Jesus.
In 19. I mean, it's been a rough year for him. It feels like he's had a better year, but he really hasn't. I mean, he had the controversy earlier this year with Austin Hill. That's really kind of been the only spot that you really remember from the year. I don't even remember where he got his win at. Was it Daytona? Dover. Okay, Dover. So, but anyway, now on to the big boys. What we're really here for, the Sunday preview.
All right, let's get to Talladega.
Get to Talladega. First, we'll look at the playoff grid. Do you have the playoff grid up?
Oh, yeah. I got it up.
Go ahead and read that bad boy off.
All right, so here are the drivers. So Larson's the only driver locked in after his win at Dover. Which, spoiler alert, because we didn't have an episode last week. Truex is plus 63 above the cut line. He's over a full race ahead. He can literally skip Talladega if he wanted to. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch are plus 48. Kevin Harvick is plus 42. Brad Keselowski is plus 20. Alex Bowman is plus 17. And William Byron and Joey Logano are tied. But because Logano finished worse than William Byron at Dover, Byron has a tiebreaker. Clint Bowyer is minus 4. Chase Elliott's minus 7. And Ryan Blaney is a distant 22 points below the cut line.
Yeah, I was looking at it this morning. To me, and here I've thought of the strategy for Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, at the end of the day, I'm never going to advocate for a team to not try to win. But if there was ever a race for Joe Gibbs Racing to just not try to win, it would be today. And here's why. And obviously, Eric Jones is out. Look at their other 3 drivers. Martin Truex Jr. second on the grid, plus 63 points. He's already officially, if he doesn't lose any points, he would already be locked into the next round. I believe it's 60 points or more, and you're good.
60.
Maybe even less, because what's the chances you bring a full 40 cars to Kansas? You'll probably end up with 37, 38 cars to Kansas.
Yeah.
Then Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch are both tied third and fourth, plus 48. Again, the golden number is kind of that 56 to 60 range. Okay. To me, if I'm them, I employ the strategy that Jeff Gordon and Hendrick Motorsports used to use 10, 15 years ago. I'm going to ride in the back all day long. I understand that stage points could be important, but on a day like today, I don't think a ton about stage points. Now, the guys that need them, they've got to. Your Chase Elliott, William Byron, Joey Logano, they've got to go up through their stage points. But when you're these guys that have a 48-plus point lead, I'm riding in the back. I'm going to make sure I miss every single – I'm talking about I might ride a straightaway back. There's no reason to get involved with the pack. All you need to do is finish this race, and you have a great chance of just coasting through Kansas and going through the next round. My strategy for Joe Gibbs Racing is don't even try to win this thing. I mean, obviously the last 10, 15 laps, if you're in a position, you got to try to win. Never going to tell a team to not try to win a race. But if I'm that team and that organization, I'll let the 20 car do whatever he wants to do, but the other 3 cars, you 3 ride in the back. We're going to sit there and wait. We're going to avoid the big one. Then if we have a chance to attack, we'll attack. Other than that, we need to finish the race because there's going to be a big wreck. There's a lot of urgency. If they do get the race started, there's a lot of urgency with weather. There's urgency with the playoffs. There's going to be a wreck today, probably going to be multiple. We've got a lot of guys that have a lot of important things at stake today. Those 3 aren't one of them. They have the biggest margin of anybody here. I'm relaxing. I'm riding. You got a shot at the end, go for it. Other than that, I'm coasting all the way to Kansas.
All right, so yeah, those are the Joe Gibbs Racing driver. Now let's take a look at fourth on back. We got Kevin Harvick, who's the other driver, who's plus 42 now. I've been kind of known, like in Twitter recently, for my bold claim that Kevin Harvick is out after this round. I still stand by that until he's mathematically locked in, or until he wins.
Today may end your little run. I've told you I have not put my stamp of approval on this pick. I have not put my stamp of approval on this prediction. But I will say this is something that's got going for you. 42 points is a lot of points. It's going to take Harvick having an issue. Kevin Harvick has not been – I don't know, about 10 years ago, it seemed like Kevin Harvick was one of the better plate racers. But recently he has not had a ton of success there. And it seems like he'll either be involved in a wreck. Now, obviously, you had Stewart Haas a year ago pretty much dominate the entire race, but Eric Almirola got the win. I don't think we see Kevin Harvick in victory lane. There's a good chance for everybody to be in a wreck today. There are going to be playoff drivers that do have problems. That just is. So Harvick, today's your chance. He's going to have a problem today. I'm pretty much this whole gamble you've been taking the last 5-6 weeks. It comes down to today, honestly. If he's got this margin going into Kansas, I mean, you might have a 3% chance of him not making it just because they don't have a problem at a place like Kansas. I mean, unless you have a tire issue or pick – I mean, you don't know. And there's an opening here, but I wouldn't sit too comfortable. You've got to hope something happens. Harvick is an interesting position because he does have 40-plus point margin. And honestly, it would probably be smart for him to ride as well. But I know they're not going to do that. They're not the kind of team to do that, especially with so much on the line. With Clint Boyer, I'm sure they're going to have to get those two working together. Obviously, Almirola's gone, as expected. There's going to be a lot of things. I think Suarez is going to be aggressive. I'm interested to see what kind of strategy that team employs. But I'm telling you, buddy, your prediction could come to an end today.
I don't want to mind Eric Jones, Hatso Harvick. My God, I'm going to need you to go back-to-back DNFs. Appreciate that.
I think it's going to happen.
I'm still standing by it, but
I mean, you got to stand by it. You got to stand by your prediction.
Oh yeah, of course. I've been standing by it ever since Indianapolis.
You got to. I mean, when you say something that bold, you have to.
Oh yeah, I've been standing by it ever since Indianapolis. My Twitter name is literally Harvick out at the round of 12.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be changing here soon. What's it going to be next? Harvick out of the round of 8. Just keep changing as it goes. Harvick not the champion. It'll say going into Homestead. Harvick not the champion. But
I'll put it as the name's like my actual name, and then I'll put that 17-year-old kid go to NASCAR.
Exactly, because he is. But looking past Harvick, 6th down in points. So here's where you kind of get in kind of the weird. No one's safe in this playoff race at Talladega. These two next guys are really in a weird position because you got Brad Keselowski who's plus 20, and you have Alex Bowman that's plus 17. And they're in a really weird position because you have a margin, but it's really not safe. You're going to have guys doing what they got to do for stage points in first. I mean, you got to think about the Hendrick Motorsports cars. They're already up front. So Chase Elliott and William Byron are racing for stage points. They can sit there and say they're not, but when you start on the front row, you're already up there. You're going to do whatever you got to do to get points there. And those teams know they need it. Bowman's also up there, so I'm sure he's going to try to stay up there and earn stage points. But it's really weird because Keselowski and Bowman are nowhere near being locked in. They still have to have a good day today. But you have a margin that you also want to try to play defense on. So you're in a position to where you have to be aggressive to have a good day, but you can't be too aggressive or you're going to cost yourself what you already have. So I'm really intrigued to see what those guys do. Brad Keselowski is the best plate racer in the field today. He just is. I think he's won 5 or 6 races on plate tracks. He right now, as they used to call Junior the Pied Piper, that is him right now at Talladega and Daytona. He's not afraid to make moves. He knows what moves to make. Keselowski's going to be interesting to watch because of that 20-point margin. And then Bowman, Bowman's a guy, he's in a situation to where he is decently safe, but he has 2 teammates that aren't. It'd be different if Chase Elliott had a big margin and William Byron was relatively safe, but the 24 cars racing for their life, the 9 cars racing to make sure they can still transfer because they're, we'll talk about them in here in a minute, but they're 7 points outside of the cut right now. It's not like anyone's going to hand the 88 a win. It's not like they're just going to push them to a win. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how that happens and how that team balances those situations. More so Bowman than Keselowski. Keselowski's a veteran. He's been in these situations before. But Bowman, he has a couple of enemies right now that really are in the Chevrolet camp that would have probably helped him otherwise, that probably won't now, in Austin Dillon and Bubba Wallace. You've got hungry teammates that know they have good enough cars to win. They're not just going to give you anything. They'll work with each other through the first 90% of the race. I'm interested to see what Bowman does here because he's got a little margin. He can capitalize and keep it, or he could drastically lose everything.
Yeah, Bowman's in an interesting situation because, like, everyone said, like, oh, because obviously he finished second at Kansas and he finished second at Talladega. Talladega, I think, is really going to be like the best chance that he's got because I've said it like basically the entire time out. I think Kansas is going to be more similar to Atlanta and Vegas earlier in the season than the actual Kansas race simply because of the time of the day. But yeah, Bowman, he's in an interesting situation. I mean, Hendrick is starting 1 through 4 and Bowman's on the front row with Chase Elliott. So it'll be interesting to see like how they work together, especially because I think William Byron is I'm reading a little bit too much into this, but like especially because it's the beginning of the race. But it's like, if William Byron has to help one of his teammates, who would he help? Because he's 8th and he's tied with Logano.
Well, it really depends because it depends how you think about it. If you're trying to help the teammate you think best helps you try to win the race, it's Chase Elliott because he's probably going to have the better car of the 4. But if you're thinking points wise, then you're probably going to help the 88 because the last thing you need is Chase Elliott to win because it makes it just harder for you to make it to the next round. Right now, the 24 cars in, 9 cars not. So the last thing you need is a guy on the outside looking in to win the race. Now you're automatically on the outside. Of course, that's barn. We don't know what's going to happen with stage points. We don't know what could happen in between that time. But points-wise, you're helping the 88 because he's already got a margin. He's already in. You're not racing the 88 right now. You're racing the 9 car. But if you're thinking of the guy I'm going to push to hopefully pass on the last lap, you got to think the 9 because the 9's probably going to have the better car today. Chase Elliott has shown he's one of the better restrictor plate drivers, especially when he can just finish the race. He's finished a race at Talladega and he won. So if that's an interesting dynamic, or maybe you rely on Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson doesn't have anything to lose. Now, that's another thing to keep in mind, though, is the 48 car is going to want to win. But I think this is one of those weekends. If Jimmy's not going to do anything to hurt a teammate. Jimmy's going to do what he has to do to help his teammates. And ironically, this is probably the first time he's ever been in that position.
All right, we got a couple questions in the chat. Thomas Burton said, where did Sauter finish? He finished 14th, last truck on the lead lap. And Joseph said, how should the playoff drivers manage the environment of racing around underdogs?
I mean, you got to do what you do every time. I don't think that really changes. The best strategy is to act like this doesn't mean anything else than any other Talladega race because you can't control what's going on. You've just got to try to trust the guys around you. Those guys are going to make the moves regardless. I mean, if Bubba Wallace is in the top 3 or 4 in the last 5 laps of the race, he's going to make a move. It doesn't matter what you think. He's going to make a move. Doesn't matter if this was in the spring. Doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the place. It doesn't matter if this is the last race of the year and the top 4 in front of him. Bubba Wallace is going to do what he's got to try to do to win the race. Guys like Michael McDowell, this is their shot. David Reagan, talk about him in a minute. I mean, this is probably David Reagan's last chance to ever win a Cup race. So you just got to manage it like you would any other weekend. I mean, you can't control what they're going to do, whether this is a regular season race, a playoff race. You just got to go out and hope for the best and hope nobody makes a moronic move or nobody pulls a Kevin LePage.
All right, so we already talked about the Hendrick cars and William Byron, Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott. Let's talk about the other 3. Let's talk about the 3 Fords below the cut line. Let's talk about Joey Logano, Clint Boyer, and Ryan Blaney. And I guess we'll start off with Logano because he's 9th. He's tied with Byron, but because of Logano's issues, he finished below Byron. And the rule is, you got to, if you to the tiebreaker, you got to be ahead of the person you got the tiebreaker with in the round. You got to finish ahead of them.
Yep, you got to have the best finish in the round.
Yeah.
And the thing with Logano to me is a guy you got to watch. He's a really good plate racer. He's going to be having a lot of his teammates run him. Here's the interesting thing. I just literally just thought of this when you made me realize there's 3 Fords in the bottom 4. We know most likely all the Fords are going to try to get together. That's going to be an interesting dynamic for 2 reasons. One, how far are you willing to help your other Ford drivers when you're having to beat them for the playoffs? And 2, it's going to keep these guys tight in points because guess what? If they're all helping each other, they're going to all relatively finish within the same 5, 6, 7 positions of each other. So it's going to be interesting to see if any of these guys can separate from one another. Ryan Blaney needs the points more than anybody else. So does that dictate how much he's willing to help a guy like Joey Logano or his teammate Brad Keselowski or a guy like Clint Boyer? It's really, really interesting because he needs the most points. He needs the most stage points to get back in this battle. And it could get interesting with the Fords. I think a lot of guys aren't going to worry about stage points because at the end of the day, you got to survive. I mean, people are going to wreck. You've got to know when that wreck is going to be. Unfortunately, if we knew that, then we'd be sitting on top of the pit box making calls.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you brought up that point. With 3 Fords being there, it's going to get interesting because the Fords are known for working with each other. I know the Penske guys will be together. I really don't know who I even pick out of here. I think Boyer's a solid guy. I think Logano's solid. Blaney's usually top 5, 7. If he can finish a race, which is his biggest deal at the plate tracks, he's also got a shot to win.
All right, so that's a look at the playoff grid, basically the ones to watch. So let's get into our our category. So who do you think are the favorites to win at Talladega?
So what I did is, we separated it into 3 categories: favorites, and then you can do it. And obviously you've had to have seen the Water Boy, and I always go back to Rob Snyder. You can do it. Like that's where I get that whole thing from. Like guys that they're favorites. They're not favorites, but they're really good drivers. You wouldn't be shocked if they won, and then you're underdog. So I'm sure, we'll go back and forth because I'll take my favorites and, you can say who your favorites are. My 3 favorites are Chase Elliott for one, start on the pole. I think he has a lot of confidence about winning earlier this spring. If he can finish the race, he's going to be near the front. Brad Keselowski, I said earlier, best plate driver in the field. If he can take care of his stuff, he's going to be there. And then my other one's Joey Logano. He's going to be right there with Brad. They're going to work together all day long, probably with Ryan Blaney. Joey Logano's won multiple, I believe, he's won multiple plate races before. He knows how to get the job done. So Elliott, Keselowski, and Logano are my 3 favorites.
All right, my 3 favorites are basically the same as yours: Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, and Joey Logano. If I had to sub a couple in there, I'd probably sub in maybe Keselowski for Hamlin, because Hamlin, in my opinion, is really the only Toyota driver who's actually good at restrictor plates. Kyle Busch, he's not a plate racer. Truex isn't a plate racer. Eric Jones is a plate racer. Maybe you could throw Matt DiBenedetto because he was, up at the front during the first 2 restrictor plate races of the season, but I don't know if he was up there really during the Daytona race in July. So maybe you could throw DiBenedetto too, but Hamlin, if I had to switch one in, I'd probably switch in Logano for Hamlin.
That's good choices. Good minds think alike. And I could see Hamlin. The only dynamic I'm worried about with the 11 car is if they sit there and say, okay, we're this far above the cutoff line, let's just get through today. But, Denny likes to win races. If he gets some stage points and he's pretty much already pointed his way in, then that pretty much probably opens free reign for him to try to win it. The next category is the you can do it category. So my 3 guys there, Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch, always been a very, very solid plate driver. Those Chevrolets, I'm sure, will work together at some point today. He's been a guy that's always known for, he won the Daytona 500. He's always known for finishing 2nd or 3rd at these kind of things. So Kurt Busch is my first one. Second one is Clint Boyer. Another one of those guys. There was a string about 7-8 years ago where it seemed like every plate race he was in the top 5. Boyer knows how to get it done. He's won a couple of plate races. Solid guy. And if the Fords are going to be up front, we saw what Stewart Haas did last year. Pretty much the only reason Almirola won that race is because he was the car in front. Any 4 of those cars could have probably won that race, but they were willing to work together. And then the last one is, I was trying to think, who can I say is solid? It wouldn't be a complete shock if they won, but you're not thinking about him, and that's got to be Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's still kind of semi-auditioning for next year. You don't know where he's going to be. He's a 2-time plate race winner. He's like Michael Waltrip all over again. He's a plate racing kind of guy. He's going to have a shot. He's going to be up front at some point. If he can just stay out of trouble and not cause anything wild or stupid, the 17 car, I'm sure, will be up front at some point today, and he's another guy you got to consider.
All right, here are mine. I got the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. I mean, Hendrick Motorsports 1 through 4. Jimmy Johnson's the shotgun on that 1 through 4. I think he's going to, like I said, Jimmy Johnson, he hasn't won in 89 races, especially after Kyle Larson's win last year. I'm pretty sure that last week, I'm pretty sure they made even more hungry than ever. Because, something I noticed is the 3 notable drivers that went winless last season were Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Jimmy Johnson. 2 of them have broken their winless streaks this year. And Jimmy Johnson really, really, really wants to end that winless streak. So I don't know. I don't think Jimmy Johnson's going to do anything to hurt his teammates. But let's say like Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman, they're up front. Jimmy Johnson's running 3rd. Coming to the white flag or 2 laps to go. And let's say they're still in a time points battle. In my opinion, I don't think Jimmy Johnson's going to care. He's going to be like, okay, you guys are in the points battle, but I haven't won in nearly 3 years. So I'm going to do what I got to do. So I think Jimmy Johnson, He's going to be one to watch. Another one, and this is a curveball. Matt Crafton. I think he's going to be one to watch too. I mean, he's taking over the 21 for Paul Menard because his disc issues in his neck. But I mean, Matt Crafton's a really solid play racer. I mean, he was up front at Daytona earlier the year, the Truck Series. He obviously won the pole for the Talladega race last year. And Matt Crafton, he's one of those drivers where it's like you don't know what he can really do in a Cup car. I mean, all he did is sub for Kyle Busch, I believe, during the Daytona 500, and I think he wrecked out of that. So I think Matt Crafton, he's going to really want something to prove. He's going to be with the Ford guy, so I don't really think he's going to do anything, though, to try to, he's not going to wreck a playoff driver for the win. He's not going to do anything crazy, but I think he is going to try to do a couple things to, show hey, I could do it at this level.
Well, I think it'll be similar to when he raced for Kyle Busch in the Daytona 500 a few years ago. I think he finished in the mid-20s there. He's probably just going to run the car, see what he can do. Craft. Would it not be the most Paul Menard thing ever to get to? Because technically Menard's going to start the race. He would get credit for the win. Would it not be the most Paul Menard thing ever to get a second career win by a Truck Series driver? But and speaking into that kind of leads us into the underdogs. So if he was not hurt, Paul Menard was 100% on my underdogs list. I put Paul Menard on this list pretty much every race. Not only am I slightly biased and I'm a fan of Paul Menard, that team's good at plate races. Some weeks it seems like the Wood brothers aren't as Penske would like to say, but on plate tracks, they are. Because Penske knows that's an advantage to have a fourth car out there that's going to be fast, can help push them, do whatever they've got to do. And Paul Menard's been close to winning a couple of these things. But obviously, he's not going to be in the entire race unless something drastic changes, whether they get the racing today, racing tomorrow, what's looking at the radar. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be a Monday race. But the underdogs on my list, the two that you could say are really true underdogs, both front row motorsports guys, Michael McDowell and David Reagan. We've seen what they've done before. We've seen the front row cars finish 1-2 in the past when David Reagan won at Talladega a few years ago. This is Reagan's last shot to win a Cup race. You don't know what he's willing to do at the end of these things. Michael McDowell's never won a Cup race. Again, another guy, he always seems to make some kind of weird kind of move late in the race that takes himself out of it, but another guy you don't want to do. And then this guy, even though I kind of debate whether you call him an underdog, his equipment's not necessarily underdog equipment, especially at the plate races. But in terms of an underdog, sometimes it's just a guy that it would be a shock to see them win, and that's Matt DiBenedetto. I don't really think this is the day for him to get that first win, but he's probably going to be up front. I think this is really his last shot to get a win with a 95 car, unless, maybe a place like Martinsville, they can have a really good run. But this is probably the favorite place for them to really get a win the rest of the year. It kind of is one of those days where you expect that team to be in the top 5, top 10. We'll see what they do, if they work with the Gibbs drivers or not. Work with the other Toyota. Really, the only other Toyotas are the Gibbs drivers. So those are my three: DiBenedetto, McDowell, and Reagan for underdogs.
All right, I really only have two underdogs. I'm probably thinking one right now, but my two underdogs are going to be the Dillon brothers, Austin and Ty Dillon. I mean, stage winner Ty Dillon, everybody. I mean, he won a stage at Talladega. I mean, he was running up front of that race. Same thing with Austin Dillon. I think he won the pole for the Talladega race in the spring. Say what you want about Richard Chill. They've been having a horrendous season this season. I mean, I think the highest one is Austin Dillon. I'm looking at right now. Yeah, the highest is Austin Dillon, 23rd in points with only 4 top 10s and no top 5s. But they know how to qualify good at these I don't know exactly where they're starting, but the Richard Childress cars, they always seem to find themselves up in the top 10, top 5 during these play races. I think Daniel Hemrick has his only top 5 at Talladega in the spring. He finished 3rd or 4th, I believe. So those are going to be my underdogs. It's going to be the Richard Childress bunch of Austin Dillon, Daniel Hemrick, and the Jermaine affiliate of Ty Dillon.
Well, all I know is it's going to be a good race. There's going to be a lot of interesting strategies. We talked about the different playoff strategies that guys are going to think about. Do you balance the gap that you've got now? Do you try to get more of a gap? And then you got guys that don't have a gap. They're negative. They got to get points. Big thing for Hendrick. They're all starting up front. That's three of those 4 drivers are in the playoffs. They need points. Jimmy Johnson's he's just there so he doesn't get fined. He's just there to have fun. It's going to be an intriguing race. I am praying this race gets in today. I've been waiting for this race for 2 weeks. It's not looking great. I know I'm keeping a live update on Twitter. Matt Weaver says there's no rain right now, but there's a big patch of rain that's looking to come within the next couple of hours. We'll see. I know they moved the start up to 2:03. I didn't even realize that's less than 40 minutes from now. So fingers crossed, hoping. I don't know how much it has rained. I know there's been light rain, so I don't know if they're having to dry the track right now. I don't really know what's going on. But for forgot to mention this. Really cool to see the old 3 car that Dale Sr. won with in 2000. That'll be back on track today. That's going to be really, really cool. It's just going to be a good day. I'm hoping for the sport. This is a weekend that the sport needs to go right. This is where a lot of diehard fans go to the racetrack, watch on TV. A lot of casual fans are tuning in. These are the kind of days that help NASCAR boost that brand again. The last thing we need is weather to get involved to make this a Monday race. So there's a lot of momentum. Dale Jr. and multiple guys have said the infield is slam packed this weekend. We need this race to get in today just for eyeballs on the sport. It's just a really good day. For the Southern region, something to think about. The Panthers are out of the way. There's no excuse to not tune into the race. So I'm just saying, I'm hoping this race gets in. Drastically hoping this race gets in today.
All right, so I think that's pretty much everything. Anything else?
Oh yeah, that's it. Another fun week. NASCAR by the numbers.
All right, take care, everybody. See you next week.
See ya.